Well, look what I brought home. It is a 1959 Bonneville. It was customized in probably 67, 68, 69, somewhere in there, by a fella named Jim Bennett. Jim Bennett worked at Standard Oil in the 60s, and he eventually entered into the Sheriff Academy, graduating in 1974. So apparently, Jim's alias was the Mad Painter, and he painted this entire bike. So how did the bike get like this? The story is he bought the bike brand new in Tucson in 1959, and in the early 60s, he got T-boned, and half of his foot got ripped off and sewn back together, and he seemed to be fine. He then moved his family from Tucson to Monterey Park, California, which is just east of LA. And that's where he befriended Sonny Barger and started hanging out with the Hells Angels. He never joined the Hells Angels, but he did ride with them, and he rode with them until he started selling drugs, and then he stopped hanging out with them. And that's kind of when he went into the Sheriff Academy. So the story is, Sonny convinced him to take his wrecked 59 Bonneville and build a chopper. And here it is. This thing is called the Iron. It also says the leader down here, but I confirmed with his sons that it was called the Iron. So Jim, in the early 90s, felt his leg go numb. And he rushed to the hospital, and there was a blood clot. And if he hadn't rested his leg and took a little time off and gone to the hospital earlier, he would have been able to save his leg. But they took his leg, and he could no longer ride this bike. So that's when it got parked. Jim died the day after Father's Day in 2001. And this bike has been sitting since the early 90s, non-running. I picked it up from his sons, and I'm going to keep it mostly just the way it is. So let's go through this. So it's all 59 Bonneville matching. The carbs have been replaced at some point with, I forget what they call these. One side of the float bowl points the other direction. So the original carbs on this bike, I think, were the chopped monoblocks. I think those are old Superior tips, maybe? MCM, Bates, something like that. He hand painted this whole frame. What's that say? The Happening. It's got high-shouldered aluminum Boreani rims front and rear. The front is an 18. And the rear is a 19. It's got Flanders U-bolt risers and 7/8 drag bars, BT&E throttle, Wassel tank and fender both chromed, and he painted it. Chromed the side covers and the oil tank and the swing arm and the center stand. We've got a Webco oil cooler. He's got a venting system on his rockers and an oil pump, an oil gauge connected to the, well, it's broken now, but connected to primary, or the timing side here. Some old Perfection Detroit headlamp. And of course, extended forks. It's got an old Bates seat and P-pad. And to go with the bike, I got a nice amount of kit. But I also got the original working 1960s Sears painting compressor, paint gun, and airbrush that he painted this bike with. And I'm going to show this out here. I've got the, hold on here. Can't open it up. I've got the original test rag that he painted the bike with. Here, let me hang it up here. So this is the rag he used to use his airbrush on and get all the colors. That's pretty cool. Oh, how'd I forget? I got a nice little stack of his business cards from the 60s, I assume. The Mad Painter Jim Bennett. So this might possibly be the find of my life. I think what I am going to do is I'm going to put the forks back to stock. And I'm going to look for a 21 or a 19 Bonneville front wheel and go back up a size. I think I might also drop the tank and potentially change the bars. That's about it. So this whole bike needs to be gone through for sure. I pulled the timing cover off. I don't think I've ever seen a bike that black. That is a black oil. Anyway, I wanted to make a video of this, just kind of documenting how I got it for prosperity's sake. And, you know, maybe share it with a few people.